Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jason Haas. Welcome to a new Friday edition, one-off Friday edition of my Instagram live broadcasts here at Tablas Creek. As I typically do, I'll give you a little bit of a visual tour of what's going on here at the winery and a quick update, and then I will invite a guest, and I am incredibly excited for the guest who I have today. This is Paul Mabray, who is the CEO of Emetry. He is a rare breed of a wine tech entrepreneur. There are not many of those in the world, and I think he has his finger on the pulse of really what is going on in the world of wine and tech, what trends are just starting, what things are incredibly frustrating to so many people, but wineries are blind to them. And I'm very much looking forward to the conversation. So we will do that in a moment, but for now, I want to again give you a quick visual tour of what's going on. So the big thing that's going on here is veraison. So here is maybe my favorite picture that we've gotten so far. This is something that our viticulturist Jordi Lonborg snapped of Mourvedre. It is perhaps a little surprising to you that Mourvedre should already be going through veraison, because if you're familiar with the grape, you will know that it is a late grape, late to sprout, late to flower, late to harvest. But one of its quirks is that it's not super late into veraison. It just takes a long time to go from veraison to harvest. So of the other main grapes that we have, Syrah is pretty far into veraison, at least farther than anything else, maybe halfway in at this point. Grenache is just beginning. We had to really hunt around to find this one cluster with just a handful of purple berries. And then Counoise, of our main grapes, nothing. We're going to be watching over the next couple of weeks for all of our grapes to start into veraison, Syrah to get mostly finished. For those of you who are keeping track, it's roughly a 6-week timer from when you start to see veraison till you're ready to start picking. So that means that we are going to be looking at the very end of August or very beginning of September for the first harvest, which is totally normal. Nice to have a normal-ish year. If you're interested in details as to how this compares to other recent vintages, that's the subject of my blog this week. A few other things that we have going on. I don't know how excited anybody but me is going to be about this, but we are getting towards serious work on a new solar-powered wine storage facility. We are going to be moving into that hopefully sometime this fall, which will give us, it's our 4th solar array. We're going to be at 100% solar. I'm super excited about that. I'm also excited to have our wine in an actual engineered, efficient, insulated building. It's gonna be great. Then the last thing that we've been working on this week is we have been working on bottling. So we've gotten the last of our 2018 red blends into bottles. So you can see Panoply on the bottling line here. And this is our assistant winemaker Craig Ham holding up one of the bottles of Esprit. So it's a big deal for us, the Esprit and Panoply bottlings. It sort of marks the home stretch between worrying about the last vintages and getting ready for the one that's about to happen. Finally, one other picture that I'm sharing, mostly because I love the picture. This is a look from inside the winery wetland area, which we use to treat the wastewater that comes out of the winery. As all wineries have to treat the wastewater, you can't release it right into a septic system because it's got a lot of acid and some solid things. And so what we've done is about 12 years ago, we replaced the septic system that we had with the first of its kind on the Central Coast, where we use these water-loving plants like reeds and cattails and rushes, put them in these gravel-filled lined ponds, and then have the winery wastewater move through this series of ponds and get filtered by the roots of these water plants. It is very much in keeping with what we try to do in finding natural processes to replace what would otherwise have to be a chemical process. And it has this nice side effect of being a habitat for water birds and amphibians. You can often hear the frogs down there in the evening, and we get visits from things like blue herons, which is always super cool. Okay, the last piece that I want to mention, anybody who is paying attention, it's supposed to be hot this weekend. We've been really lucky since we reopened our tasting room. that we haven't had any really scorching days. But we are worried enough about the temperatures on Saturday and Sunday that we are closing our tasting room early. We're not taking any afternoon reservations, and we've been contacting people who are who have appointments for the afternoon on Saturday and Sunday, and letting them know that we're going to close for their safety and for our own safety, and trying to move them to other appointments that we have available. So this is the first time we've had to do this. We apologize. We appreciate everybody's understanding, but it's supposed to be as hot as maybe 110. I don't think it'll be that hot out here, but at the same time, even if it's 104, that's not I think sitting outside, even in shade, even with misters, even with fans, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for guests. So that's just a heads up. We are contacting anyone who has a reservation, but and it's up on our website. But I thought I should share it. Okay, so now I'm going to invite Paul. So I'm super excited for this. It says it's waiting for him to connect. Connecting. Hey, buddy.
Hey, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too.
Thank you, thank you. Sorry about the COVID hair. It's just getting my bouffant is growing every day, and I haven't been able to. There has been an opening, so.
I broke down and bought clippers, and had my wife and 15-year-old help me do my own hair about a month ago. It was surprisingly fulfilling.
Oh, nice. I thought about going all the way down to the nubs, but I'm worried it won't come back, so I just. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so could you maybe start by just talking a little bit about what Emetry is and what it is that you do?
Yeah, thanks for asking, and thanks for having me here. And sorry about the scheduling mix-up earlier this
No
week.
worries.
Deepest apologies. As you know, I've been in wine tech probably the longest. 20 plus years. I don't even want to admit to the amount of time because it's. And Emetry is the current venture where I'm the CEO, and it's a customer insights company. So we measure data from the wineries to tell them who's going to buy, who's going to leave their DTC, who's going to be their retail buyers, who's going to leave, predict that as much as we can. So all kinds of machine learning and algorithms and all kinds of nerd words. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're just trying to help them keep customers and make more sales.
So which came first for you, the wine piece or the entrepreneur piece?
Yeah, and, well, entrepreneurship was not in my cards early in the day. I was always a nerd, a closet nerd, and I was hired by John Wright, who opened his own microbrewery called Napa Ale Works, and he was the former CEO of Domaine Chandon. He made me a sales rep. I am a terrible sales guy, terrible. So I wrote my own CRM program, which was a nerd way of telling you call this guy this time, or you call this lady. There's the cigar, there's their kids, and of course my sales hockey sticked up, and then that was kind of the beginning of my career. And it was always nerd, nerd, nerd. And I think the entrepreneurial shift happened in the dot-com era. I was part of WineShopperWine.com. I don't know if you remember way back when, and that debacle. I rearranged the deck chairs on the Titanic a few times as it sank, and played the fiddle. And at that point, I said, well, you know what? We really need to change wine online, and I founded Wine Direct.
Huh. Cool. Yeah, I remember I read it in an interview someplace where you described yourself as a terrible salesperson, and like, I mean, I've known you for a while, and I find that really hard to believe.
I'm
I,
terrible.
um, cool. So talk a little bit about about that journey. I mean, you've been a part of a number of different companies. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the first time that we really spent much time together was when you were working for you were running Vintank,
Mhm.
um, and then to Avero, and now to Emetry. What ties all those together?
So I really actually only been with four companies the last 2.5 decades in essence, even though so I was with WineShopperWine.com, and then I went to Wine Direct where I was there for 7 years, and then I was with Vintank for 7 years, but Vintank sold to two different companies, and I followed Vintank with it, just to be clear, and ran part of their technology departments or innovation departments, and then Emetry as the fourth one. So um, the thing that ties all of them together is really a tool set, bringing a tool set to the wine industry that's digital, trying to help them unlock those tool sets. So if you look at my first one, it's really e-commerce and online, then social media, and now big data. And those are all three, and they're all three part of the same thing. And actually, the actual tool is less important to me than the bigger meta conversation, which is how do we unlock wineries using digital? And these are all just pillars of that journey.
So when you look at a winery's marketing, what are the things that really make you mad? Like, what are the things that, or not make you mad, but whatever, things that you're like, oh man, I can't believe that I have to see this again. What are the things that really get you?
Yeah, I've spent a pretty interesting career kind of being the front of the line, telling people stuff. I mean, you have to remember I was selling e-commerce in 2002, and I remember knocking on winery stores, Wine Direct, and I'm like, hey guys, there's this thing called the internet. It's going to sell a bunch of wine. We just have to do it. Oh, Paul, you're so cute when that internet fad goes away. And then in 2009, I'm like, I'm telling you, there's this thing called social media. It's amazing. It's like we've never seen anything. Oh, Paul. Fortunately, I don't get the cheek pinch anymore because I'm too old. But I think the part that hurts my heart is those two technologies, social media and e-commerce, are not new technologies, and we still haven't done a very good job of adapting to them. And if it wasn't for this black swan event of COVID, I actually wouldn't have predicted seeing it in my lifetime, to be honest with you. So,
And so are you of the belief that, I mean, I hear this in a lot of industries, that basically COVID has pushed 5 years worth of change in 3 months. You feel the same's true in wine?
and I think it's more than that. So, I mean, you have to remember we weren't doing much at all in those categories. Very few winery leaders had shopping carts of any caliber or even paid attention to those channels. So, I think it pulled us back 10, 15 years from the past to the future. So that's like a rubber band effect. And I think most of the shock that most wineries are receiving is because this change is happening so fast, and it's not going forward, it's catching up with what's already happened. Breaking down of like, how do we handle a return, or what happens when the email goes to this customer service rep that doesn't exist at the winery anymore. So there's a lot of debt, technical debt, people debt, process debt that we have to pay back before we move forward, and that's painful. Paying debt always is.
Right. It always comes due at some point.
It always comes due, yeah. So, and that's what we have to pay. We have to upgrade, and we have to teach people new skills. We have to fix our carts. I mean, I had someone ask me to send him my favorite summer wines. You were on that list, actually, of all the different carts, and I sent you a picture. I took pictures of the carts as I shopped them to recommend those wines, and there was only 2 or 3 carts in there that were worth shopping. They were very hard. It was very painful for me to do that experience because I'm like, oh, I love that wine, but Jesus, come on, a PDF downloadable form in 2020? What are you talking about? That hurts my heart. There you go. PDF, fax us. That hurts my heart.
We did. We finally made it with our last website revision. We finally were like, I think we can actually take the fax number off of the homepage. Like, maybe we should finally do that.
Yeah. So yes, that hurts my heart, and it's interesting to see what's going on. I think the wine industry right now is really benefiting from COVID, but it's passive benefit. It's not actively leaning into what we could be doing. The smartest wineries I'm working with or seeing work outside of me are preparing for October, November, December. They're building infrastructure. They're training their people. They're saying, okay, we're going to receive this benefit, but let's really scaffold this up and make this strong foundation so that we can take this change and carry it into the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I know that we've been trying to think about. I was going to say trying to figure out, but I'm not sure if we can do that. But at least we can be prepared for what some of the possibilities are. I mean, we know everybody, unless you were really in the dark ages, saw a big boost in phone and internet orders in the second half of March and April.
Yeah.
Because everyone was at home and everyone was trying to, I mean, they were trying not to go to the supermarkets. They weren't buying wine at restaurants. They were cooking. I mean, it was lots of
homeschooling. And we were homeschooling. So happy hour started.
Homeschooling. And we've seen our baseline fade from where it was at the peak of those stay-at-home orders. I mean, the times when we're not actually doing, we haven't sent an email out that week, or where the baseline is, it's still like 3 times what it was last year, in a baseline week, right. But it's maybe half of what it was in the middle of April.
Can I ask you a question on that? I mean, so what is your active customer acquisition strategy that's applied to that? Because the ones we see growing 40% new customer week over week had an active infrastructure for new customer acquisition via digital. That's
Well,
yeah.
I mean, we
And don't get me wrong, your brand draws people because it's got great wine, but I mean, they're actively throwing nets out into the water and looking for a good return on advertising spend, and
yeah, and we really don't do that. We really
yeah,
do not do any advertising.
yeah,
I mean, we have done a little bit of Facebook and Instagram promotion over the
sure,
past. I've backed away from that in the last few months because I'm not really comfortable putting money into Facebook and Instagram's
sure.
um, bank accounts.
That's
Um,
good choice, good social choice.
we do a lot of work trying to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to get good editorial coverage. We've increased the outreach that we've been doing to writers
Mm-hmm.
in this time. Um, I think we have fine tuned what we're doing in um, in terms of our frequency and the consistency and the appeal of what we've been doing in social media over the last few
Mm-hmm.
months. Um,
Sure.
and we've also tried to do more in working with the non-wine club portions of our mailing list. I mean, because we've got like 10,000 wine club members, but we've got another 30,000 people on our mailing list who are not wine club members, and I feel like we haven't been giving them enough touches in in recent years. So that's basically been our strategy: is try to make sure that we're getting good editorial, that we're being smart with our social media, and that we're trying to do what we can to turn those mailing list folks into customers.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned. I think wine club has been a unfortunate crutch that we've leaned on. And wine club is a very valuable member, but we create this dichotomy of customer value based upon a moniker that's not necessarily right. I mean, you probably have some big customers that are not wine club members, and when they call the wineries, are you wine club members? Kind of the first question that goes on the phone. Automatically routes to a different place versus the fact that they could be one of your biggest, best customers that just so happens not to be a wine club member. We see that consistently at wineries. Looking at the data, almost 30 to 40% of their customer footprint, when you look across the cohorts, is not wine club, but they're still buying a lot of wine. Even
Right.
more than wine club members. So um, I think what's really interesting too is watching wineries again activate not just wine club members, but go beyond email and social media, like trying new things like traditional mailing, telemarketing, SMS messaging, retargeting different ways. I see that's really interesting because customers it's noisy right now, and even though we're at home, it's even noisier in some
Yeah,
ways.
for sure.
In fact, I'm snuck out into the office so I could not hear four kids and a dog barking. So um, yeah, it's different times for sure.
And how do you go about finding researching, buying wines when you're looking for new stuff?
Yeah, so there's a variety of factors. I mean, to be fair, I'm not the norm. I've moved out of the
Of
normal
course.
angle like you and I have. So I think that that's what most people in the industry forget, that once we're deep into it, we're out of the major cycle. But there are some key critics and key people I listen to. I listen to Lane Brown, Esther Mobley when they talk about wine. I listen to Eric Asimov. I'm kind of on my own journey now. As most enophiles, when you cross a threshold, you move into your own stratosphere of what you want to try. The geekier, the weirder for me is kind of like the shtick. Of course I live in Napa, so there's plenty of Cabernet, but that's why I drink your Grenache Blanc. That's a nice journey out of the norm that everyone else drinks. So it's something that I have as a nice, relaxing drink. Once a month, and just so you know, I never told you, but yeah, it's one of my secrets. But I think that mine is much more organic based upon people I know at
Uh-huh.
the high level and their recommendations. And we hang out with so many wine people. I mean, living in Napa, it's kind of the ecosphere, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's true for most of the people who I know who are in the business.
Yeah.
You're part of the community. You want to support the people in your community who you like. I mean, there's lots of great wine out there,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and it's it's interesting your comment about Grenache Blanc being kind of exotic in Napa.
Yeah.
Um,
It is.
it is absolutely. It's I talk to a lot of neighbors here who are surprised that we actually sell much wine in Napa. But traditionally, I mean, it's in our top five for territories in the state of California for sales. And I
Yeah.
think it's because what we do is totally non competitive with what happens in Napa. And there's a ton of people like you who are in the business, wine knowledgeable, But
Hmm.
man, if they see another Cabernet or Merlot or Chardonnay, like they're gonna hide under their desks.
Well, and like you said, there's a couple factors. You're a good guy. You're a good business. I like you. I like what you. I want to support you. And in Whole Foods, when I look at the selection of stuff that's there, that's kind of like the regular shopping meat groceries. There you are every time. That's your. So if I'm on a choice level, I'm like it's you and two other wines in Whole Foods that I'm gonna grab, throw in the bucket, and move on my way out. So just so you know, that's where I get yours mostly. Yeah, as a Whole Foods or so
Awesome,
yeah.
cool. So we've talked about some of the things that really make you mad. Are there things that you find are kind of encouraging? Are there trends in wine that you're excited to see that you think are positive things that will stick around and make a real positive difference?
Well, I mean, look, the the cultural change that was, you know, driven by COVID is not changing. I mean, and the results that people have seen as a result of e-com has awoken the wineries up to saying, wow, this really is a legitimate channel. How do we maintain that? And so what I noticed is wineries that had even a minimal infrastructure of people and processes were the ones that exploded and just kept growing, and they're still growing at a rapid rate. But you see a lot of that cultural change is happening across everyone. So what that means is that all this experience now will be bled into our industry. There'll be leaders now, and when you have leaders, you have followers, and you have anecdotes. And the one problem with the wine industry is we're a very fast follower industry. We're a very slow leader industry as it relates to technology, sales, and marketing. So now that there's people leading, now that there's people doing things, and people go, oh, there's a reason to believe, as opposed to let me be the first one to walk into that pit of maybe lava or maybe some wonderful hot tub. We're not sure. It's bubbling. Um, yeah, exactly. So. And it's kind of a fear factor that's baked into our culture, which is, we have one chance at a vintage. It happens once a year. And those are kind of two elements that we don't quite understand about ourselves. And so we're kind of risk averse because of that. You don't want to lose the vintage. You only have one chance at it. It takes a lot of time. So those are things that are baked into our ethos that we don't even understand or realize.
Yeah, and I think it's made worse in wine by the fact that there are a huge percentage of wineries whose main marketing, like what is their brand, is tradition. Like
Yeah.
this is the way that we've done it for generations. This. So I don't feel like um, people for whom that's been their defining ethos for decades are necessarily going to be particularly nimble at adopting new ways of telling that story. Uh,
Yeah, it's unfortunate because we need to. I mean, if you hear one more story about family-owned, sustainable, terroir, whatever you want, it's in the dirt. You're like, okay, like everybody,
right.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong; those are all positive qualities, but they're not differentiators if everyone's saying the exact same thing. If you're all saying the same thing, it's not different. So,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yes. Indeed. And what? And so. Um,
Exactly.
and then the other thing is that I think there are a lot of people who, I mean, some of it's a generational thing. There are certainly a lot of people running wineries who are an older generation for whom social media is like they're just starting to wrap their heads around it, or they think it's something that can be outsourced to their whatever their
Neighbor.
their cousin's nephew to do. And so I think there's been, yeah, it's interesting. There's less and less amateurism in winemaking than there's ever been,
No, no
but
doubt.
I don't feel like there is that same professionalism has necessarily been translated into the way that wineries are telling their stories.
Yeah, I think, we're a production centric industry. Let's just call it what we are. We're about making wine, when in reality we should be about making wine and selling wine, and that second part is not necessarily carried over. And secondarily, we attract a very large swath of lifestyle people. Everyone wants to be in the wine industry. It's really fantastic, and um, the lifestyle sometimes overrides the professionalism, and you'll take less money to live the lifestyle. And so as a result, you get lesser quality talent. So
Right.
that's an unfortunate truth. We need to invest in talent. We need to spend more money on it. Oftentimes, the EA for the winery CEO makes more money than the head of DTC, and that doesn't make sense. It's actually statistically correct if you look at Wine Business Monthly. The EAs on a salary average make more than DTC managers.
That's crazy.
It's insane. It's insane.
Huh. Yeah. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No.
self checklist, like if you're out
Yeah.
there and you're a winery, and if this is you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, DTC is a really interesting. I mean, in general, that's a cultural problem that we have that we've grown up with too. Remember, DTC is an outcropping of was really a hospitality function, right? The wineries opened up the doors so the trade could come. People came and wanted to buy wine. We're like, oh, sure, we'll sell you wine. And as more people came, we upgraded our experiences. We added, dollars in it. But that was all of our money. They were showing up at our door. We want 100% of that margin. We wanted to make and somehow that hardened in our heads, and we never devoted money or time to retention or acquisition, which is a normal part of the percentage of the
Right.
sales. So, and every penny we make above FOB is found money, by the way, to be really honest with you. I'm not saying that that's the right answer, but every penny above FOB, which is what we sell to the wholesaler,
Yep.
is a lot of money. And we did a survey one time in Europe. I said, what percentage of the first transaction of a sale would you give to get a new customer? 5%, 10%, 15, 20, 25, all the way down to 50%. And 90% of the recipients said 10% or less.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I have. I mean, obviously, that's nuts.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's nuts.
so let's
Yeah.
let's get that out there first.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
Because I felt
incredibly
like it was nuts too. I
self-deprecating.
was like, ah.
But how do you encourage wineries to balance um, kind of incentives for acquiring new customers with the rewards for being a consistent and ongoing customer? I mean, I know there's very little that makes me madder than the companies that I've been a customer of for 5 years, seeing an ad that like you can become a new customer of this for half what I've been paying.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, I hate that cell phone methodology. That's what we call it, the cell phone, which is you can get a brand new phone if you come on right now and you're like, Jesus, I've been a 10-year AT&T customer. Where's my
Right.
new phone? 100% agree. I actually believe that retention is the new acquisition. It always should have been. Our blessings of getting such strong eno-tourism, whether it's in Paso or in Napa, really kind of uh, gave us apathy to the retention model, with the exception of giving discounts and such. Because like in Napa, what we get 3.2 million tourists. I don't know what you guys get through Paso from LA, but it's not small.
No, not
Um,
small. It's got to be over 1 million. But
yeah, exactly. But still, that's a big pool filling up your pond every year. And as a result, most people haven't built retention tools into their systems, into their process, into their budget. We call the benefits we give wine club members retention tools, but they're breakable, meaning like, okay, I'm a guy from LA. You give me 3 free tastings a year. Well, maybe I'll get there for one, maybe I'll get there for three, or you offer me all these wine club dinners that I'm allowed to come to, but I've got 3 kids and I'm a full-time job. I mean, that's a breakable amenity that doesn't really add
right.
value to me. I think that we're getting smarter about that and the retention piece, and I think I would spend more of my money in the retention piece because the cost of the facilities that you guys have and the people are very expensive when you kind of weigh it all into the total cost of goods and operations. Um, and I think I'd rather see wineries devote money to retention than acquisition when tasting rooms open back up again. But the real quest, the ultimate holy grail that we're all looking for, we're all seeking, is actually that the tasting room model is a brittle model. It's a funnel. It's only this big that we can fit only so many people through your tasting room in an annual year. Um, Even if you open a second one or a third one or whatever, it's the smallest choke point. How do we get a customer in Boston who doesn't know who you are, who's never tasted your Grenache Blanc, to buy your wine first time and ship it to their house? How do we reach them in their living rooms in ways?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate quest, and that's what we should be spending our dollars and our mind share to figure out for acquisition.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a fascinating problem. If I'd solved it, believe me, I think about it every day. As my wife's the CEO of a winery here in
Yeah.
Sonoma. She used to run of all consumer direct for all Constellations. So we talk shop more than not, more probably than more most couples do. So um, we don't always agree, but once in a while I get a hit, and she accepts something I do. She also gets to be my petri dish for all the crazy experimentation I do. Sometimes to her benefit, sometimes to her chagrin. So yeah,
Cool. Okay,
yeah,
one more question. We're almost at
sure,
half an hour.
okay.
So so what's next? What's next for you? What exciting stuff are you excited about that you're working on at Emetry, or that you're working on in personal life?
So in personal life, I'm writing a silly little game, like one of those kind of augmented reality games where I'm getting letters to be sent to my kids. So it keeps them busy. So they have to solve a code. They're going to think that's coming from some company telling them to do that, and they have to collaborate. And I went on Upwork, which is an outsourced thing, so you can outsource designers and such. So they're writing all these notes and cards and codes and stuff like that. And they're going to get these shipments that I design on a regular basis. And I get to sit back and watch them do that. It's kind of my because I feel like they're going crazy
Oh,
and they're
that's
singing.
awesome.
Yeah, they're singing in front of video games all the time, and they're doing. I'm like, get up, do something new, use your brain. So that's my way of like catalyzing that experience, and it gives me a little bit of a creative outlet as well. So it's been kind of fun to design it, and I'm sure it's gonna have all kinds of ridiculous, stupid things, but like yeah. So that's my personal thing. On a professional level with Emetry, I'm really working hard on trying to power marketing automation at key customer touchpoints. So meaning like if one of your consumers you see they're at risk to leave your wine club, what does that trigger? Does that trigger an SMS message? Does that trigger a Facebook ad? Does that trigger an email? Does it trigger all three depending on the quality of customer? Does it send it to you as an email that you have a digest every day? These are your best, most important customers that are at risk. Jason, get on the phone and call them. That's what I'm excited about is how do we help string together these things because the systems won't do it. So I'm taking the data out of the systems and I want to unlock that data. I want to unlock it on the customer journeys. And I find that super exciting to me. It's so much uncharted territory and there's no single solution. So what works for you probably doesn't work for Donna, my wife's winery, and probably doesn't work for 19 Crimes. Those are all three wine companies,
Right.
but with three very different customers, three different journeys, three different experiences and brand values. And it's hard to find the answer when there's so much variation.
That's super cool. It sounds like magic, which in general the next leap in technology usually does before it arrives.
Yeah. It's unfortunately it's never magic. It's always work. That's the reality of it. It's more work and more additive. It's just we got to put dollars and time there. So that's what I'm doing. Dollars and time. Dollars and time. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being the guy who puts in the work to turn something that sounds like magic into something that the rest of us get to do.
Thank you, my friend. I love it. It makes me happy. So.
So if people want to learn more about Emetry, what's the best way? I assume the website?
Yeah, just go to the website emetry.io. But like everyone can find me on Twitter at pmabray, Pmabray. I love that platform. I love to engage there. You and I talk there.
Yeah.
It's where people share creative ideas. It's where you can engage with positive,
Yep.
commentary with people, and I really enjoy the conversations there. Instagram's nice and fun, but where I get intellectual value is from Twitter for myself.
I totally agree. It's definitely my favorite of the social media platforms for that reason.
Ditto. And you
And
can talk to anyone.
anybody who doesn't follow me, I mean, obviously you can follow Tablas Creek. That's at Tablas Creek, but I'm at Jason C. Haas.
Yeah.
If you don't follow me already, but want to.
Yeah, he's got good content. Follow his TL. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure to get to talk to you anyway. Thanks for taking the time to come on and talk on the Tablas Creek channel.
I really appreciate you having me, and I'm looking forward to having a glass of wine together in real life sooner than later, honestly. So
I hope so.
all right.
Okay.
You have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Okay.
Thanks, Paul. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.